Hello and welcome to the third part of my build series on the Tamiya Plasma Edge 2 on the TT-02B chassis. Today we'll be concentrating on finishing parts bag B, which is steps 20 to 27, building the shocks.
Step 20 is assembling the front dampers, or partially assembling the front dampers. And for this we're going to need 2 off of MB13s, which are the front piston rods, 4 off of MB15s, which are the 3mm O-rings, and 2 off of W1s, W3s, V2 and V11s. And as you can see here, I've already started and prepped one, so we'll get straight on. I've got my trusty green slime and I've already popped some into the O-ring housing, so we can pop the first O-ring in, squidge it down, some more green slime. Step 21 is filling the damper up with oil, and if you see down here it shows you a list of different grades of damper oil you can get, and the one highlighted here is yellow, which is, let me get the tub, no, can't get it, oh, there we go, which basically looks like that, and that's telling us that it's in the soft range and it's 400 weight. Now, because these piston rods are, how can I say it, the lesser quality ones with just the metal piston, I've not had that much success with damping using this 400 weight oil. So for the fronts I'm going to be using this 900 weight, and in the back I think I've got 1100 weight. So if we drag this back down so you can see the plans, it shows you to pull the piston all the way down to the bottom, and then you're supposed to move it up and down to get rid of any air bubbles, but I'm going to try this approach. I'm not sure if it'll work or if I'll get stuff everywhere. I have got one of my fingers just over the hole just in case. In fact, I think we'll pull that out. So I can see when I'm filling up, and it's just a case of pouring it in until you're about where you think you should be, and then we can hopefully possibly try and get the piston rod through the centre hole, and typically I can't bloody feel it. There we go, and push it in, and that should avoid any major air holes or air pockets or air bubbles. That's the word I was looking for. So we can pull it all the way down, I think I've still got a few, and then I'm going to just top it up a bit, about there. Have a quick glance, excuse me, and yeah, I do have some air bubbles in there, so unfortunately we're going to go back to old school and get my shock holder, pop it on and leave it for half an hour or so for the bubbles to pop and release. So I'll show you with this one how to do it via the book, and again we pour it in to about there, should do, and you don't want to do this too fast, otherwise you're liable to get a stream of oil shooting out. Well, I'm just moving it up and down, trying to get any air bubbles out from underneath the piston itself. Oops. That should do us, and then I'm going to top it up again. And put that on to one side, and we'll get back to them once all the air's gone. Now all the air bubbles have dissipated, we can hopefully, I don't think that's going to be too bad, I think I might just pop a bit more oil in there just to make sure we don't get any air gaps. Oops. And then according to the instructions we take MB9, which is the oil seal green, pop it in, press it down, and then clean off any excess oil, and then we can pop the cap on. And then what I tend to do is I grab the bottom O-ring cap and the top cap and just tighten them both together until I can't tighten them anymore, and hopefully that will stop any oil coming out, especially with my green slime. Give it a bit of a 2 dampers made. Just got to put the lower ball joint connector on, and we can move on to adding the springs and fixing them to the chassis. Step 22 is attaching the front dampers, and for this we are going to need 4 off of MB3 3x14mm step screws and 2 off of MB11 the front coil springs. And then on the plastic parts, if we move the paper up, we're going to need 4 off of B8, which are plastic spacers, 2 off of V5, which are the spring holders, and then 1 or more of V4, V6 and V7, which are the spring tensioners. And with that we can just crack on, I think. So I think we'll start by putting the springs on. And looking at this, no, there's no obvious way round orientation, so we take spring, compress it with the fingers and let it go, and that to me isn't too bad as it stands. I think I won't put any tensioners on at the minute. We'll see how we go. So we take a shock, and from this, as per most manuals with adjustable shocks here, we've got 3 positions we can put the shock in, and the manual always starts, shall we say, with a default of the centre hole, so let's do that. So according to this, we take a step screw and a spacer, then pop it through the mount and simply screw it in. Again the same with the top. And there we have one shock mounted, and as I hope you can see, strangely with this off-road buggy you can have a lot more depth or ground clearance with some longer shocks, so that might be something I have to do when and if I can ever get on. Before we move on to the next step, I just thought I'd try and show you what the difference is between mounting the lower shock in the centre hole to the one on the innermost side, and I think you can just about see that should give me a bit more ground clearance. Now, I know some of you techies out there will be shouting, yeah, but it's going to make the shock easier to push up due to fulcrums and levers and all of this stuff that I probably know enough about to be dangerous, but not really enough to be scientific. But it's going to give me a bit more ground clearance, and that's what I want. So I think I'll leave it at that for the minute. So I'm going to swap this over and put it on the innermost mount point, and we can carry on with the rear shocks. Steps 23, 24 and 25 are building the rear shocks. Basically the same process as the front shocks, only a bit bigger, if you can see here. And we're going to need the usual 4 off of MB15 3mm O-rings black, 2 off of MB12 rear suspension or rear piston rod, and then plastic parts Y1 and Y3 and X2 and X3. And like I say, it's the same process, so I think we'll just get on and start sliming. And the only other difference is from the front to the back shocks is I'm using 1100 weight oil because of the weight of the motor at the back. And come back to the one that I prepared earlier, which I think I've overfilled a bit, so as you can see I'm getting some tissue, and hopefully pop that in here. Clear up most of the excess. And put the lid on. Yeah, lovely. And then while I'm waiting for that, I think we'll crack on and put the spring on. Move that out of the way. Like so. And again, I think I'll leave that. I won't put any pre-tensioners on it, and we'll see where we go with that. So step 26 is fitting the rear dampers, and again we're going to need 4 off of MB3, the 3x14mm step screws, and 4 off of B8s, the spacers. And again, it's a simple task, shall we say, of taking one of the step screws and the spacers, popping it on, and again starting off on the middle, but I think this time, yeah, like the fronts, I've changed my mind, and we're going to pop it on the inside mount point to hopefully give us a bit more ground clearance even. And just to show you, not too keen on that. That's a lot of flex. But there we go. I'll do the other side and we can move on to the last step, step 27 in this video. Step 27 is adding the steering linkage, and for this we're going to need 2 off of MB2s 3x18mm step screws, 2 off of MB14 3mm washers, and 2 off of MB8 5mm ball joints, which I've already put onto parts A6 ready. And there are some notes about noting direction and things. We then got 2 other plastic parts C3, which are the steering linkages themselves, or the track rods, not that you can adjust them. And then we've also got this bit of sponge tape, and there's a scale drawing there of how big to cut it, and that's all done. And if I'd have remembered, I'd have stuck this on first, because I know these are a pain in the arse to get the backing tape off. And it goes, from looking at the diagram, somewhere around about here. And it's there supposedly to help stop bits of grit and gravel getting under and locking up the servo saver. So with that we can swiftly carry on. And looking at the diagram, we need these long step screws and a washer. And the step screw goes through, then a washer, and it screws into there. There we go. And then the tie rods, track rods, simply pop on, and it does suggest you use pliers, so I think you could have got away with the fingers on that one. Let's try this one. There we go, that sounded a bit harder. And then the same for the other side. And that's it. Steering linkage is almost complete. I'm unsure why they didn't install that on this stage, but hey, there we go. That's parts bag B complete, and the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Cheers, bye.